All right, good morning. This is a recap of last night's Dragon Slayer OSR Barrowmaze campaign, session 14, I believe. Um, so we've all been on our summer break. I don't know if it's normal, but it's happened to us last couple of years. We tend to have a month or so, maybe 2 months off in the summer. We just don't. I think it's just summer is just too much other stuff going on. People traveling and vacationing and whatever else. So I had a lot to do. So I was gone for a while. I ended up gone a little longer than I wanted to be. So um, I think Eloy, Jose, everybody, we just took a break, right? I don't know if everybody was gone on vacation, but we just took a break. So it's nice. The winters are really perfect for indoor hobbies anyway, right? And for our hobby of role playing, really. Um, so anyway, we get back to it. It was wonderful to sit with the guys, see the guys. I haven't chatted with anybody at all in nearly, uh, I mean, here and there, a comment or here and there, a message, but really haven't really done any communication at all, hardly over the last month and a half or so. So it's just nice to talk to the guys, get back to the table. And it's not like the heart grows fonder for the old school D20 OSR. The heart's always been fond of this thing that I started doing when I was 10 years old. So it's not like it's not like it's something that I don't always want to do or fit into my hobby, right? So anyway, this was kind of get our we started a little late and we just kind of want to get our feet wet again. We had a couple of technical difficulties, or I should say Todd had some technical difficulties. So it was just a great night to kind of get our feet wet again. And we had left a cliffhanger in session 13. Out of the woods come the wolves and drop the curtain. So this opens again. We are playing Barrowmaze. We had just been excavating mounds and we were headed home at the end of session 13 when we were ambushed by a pack of wolves just outside of Helix, our headquarter town, our hometown, so to speak, our you know our adopted hometown for this region of the world, so to speak. So Barrel Maze, but most of what we've been doing of late has been excavating and pillaging mounds. Um, and we haven't been back into the maze for any length of time. So at some point we will. But what's happened to us in the meantime is, well, we've been able to get treasure. We've been able to outfit our entire entourage of hirelings. So all of our hired soldiers, our zero level hirelings, are outfitted with armor and weapons. Most of us now have plate mail, and we've been able to befriend a witch outside of Bogtown, and she's been able to provide some healing um, elixirs. And there's no doubt we are ready for a serious dive back into Barrel Maze. However, we're doing what we're doing. So again, there's no plan afoot, as it were, right? Um, so this opens with us ambushed by wolves. We aren't surprised, fortunately, and we do end up in a heck of a battle. I don't know how many rounds this went, and I never felt we were of great threat, but I definitely felt our henchmen were, our hirelings were. And sure enough, we lost three down, one killed, and two down. They both made actually, one made a save. I can't remember if the other one rolled or not, or if another one needed to roll. Oh no, two down, one was killed, excuse me. The other made a death save because he is now a level one. He's worked his way up to a level one henchman. So we treat him like a PC. He gets a death save, and fortunately, he made it. Lamb, and of course, we get to know these hirelings, although they're NPCs and they're hirelings, they become part of our journeys. They become part of the stories. So of course, we don't want to see any of them die. So that was kind of cool, right? So we bring Lamb up. Or he's alive anyway. We finish off these wolves, which were again they were a heck of a battle. I didn't feel my life was um, at threat yet. So by the time we waylaid them pretty good, I felt like we were all right. I was most concerned about our henchmen. And that's the fun part about leveling up. I'm finally getting to play. So again, for those who don't know, considering I played D&D or a version, OSR version of Dungeons and Dragons, Moldvay style for 40 years, most of it I was a GM, and I have rarely, as a player, been able to get to level 4. I'm level 4, um, and it's kind of interesting to it's changed. Um, so this is the thing about discussing about our hobby, talking about the realities of lethality in our hobby. And it's legit, and it's a problem for people who have never played before. They come to the table, they're like, what, I got one hit point, and boom, they're dead. But the funny thing is when you start getting up to a level where you're a little crunchy, where I can take some damage. I have plate mail armor. My fighter is a little more capable. Again, there is a mind switch. There's kind of this mind switch that I can now relax a little bit and really decide how Vela's going to go about how I'm going to go about role playing Vela a little more, right? So this is something that is obvious when I play games where you're already a little meatier, right? The fourth edition D&D and fifth edition D&D. I think I had a wizard that was at level 2 or something like that. But you just feel a little safer because you've got 3 death saves or something like that, and you've got all kinds of ways of healing, and players can come to your aid, and everybody can heal. And so of course, this rule is fantastic with a binding of wounds post combat. You can bind your wounds. You can bind the wounds of anybody in the party. Plus, there's some. So there's just something like that lends a little more um, resilience to your characters. But again, level 4 for me as an adult human being is a treat. I don't believe I was ever higher than 4 or 5 as a kid. I can't recall if I ever had a character very long. I did have a character named Logan Seed that had been a part of a little module that a friend ran. And two things are fascinating about that personally, just for a personal note. My best friend named his firstborn Logan, which is cool. And the gentleman who ran that module slash campaign unfortunately killed himself when he was 27. So my first taste of losing a close friend, was 20 something, 25 years ago. Oh God, what is it? 151? Yeah, 27 years ago, he killed himself. And he ran one of the few sessions of D&D, multiple days, multiple sessions in which I got to be a player. I was his GM aide in that. I was aiding him. He had never GM'd before, so I was sitting on his side of the table, teaching him or helping him GM. And he wanted me to control some NPCs. And then by the end of the first session, I was on the other side of the table, had joined the guys, and I had taken this NPC with me, and he became my first real character, and I named him Logan Seed. So anyway, that's kind of a personal story. I don't know why I'm talking about that, but it just came to me. And unfortunately, yes, he was my first childhood friend that unfortunately I dealt with death and unfortunate suicide. Okay, anyway, back to the happier talk, right? So anyway, so we end up in this epic melee with wolves, and it is epic. There is plenty of attack rounds. There's plenty of damage being done here and there, and so it was epic. It was an epic battle. It was fantastic. We survived it. Unfortunately, we had 2 down. One fortunately survived. We bind his wounds. We're up on our feet. I bind wounds. Tarlin heals. My character took, I think, the second most damage of the lot in the fight. And I'm telling you, plate mail armor, it is the big difference for survival for fighters in OSRs, of course, right? Most of us know how valuable plate mail is. Dragon Slayer makes plate mail expensive. which is not true of Moldvay. Moldvay, when you roll up your gold, if you've got at least, I think, 50 gold or more, you can outfit in plate mill to start. And that's fine because that's that character. I mean, that's a good portion of the only treasure you start the game with. And why not assume your character's established as plate mill somewhere along the way? But it's a huge investment, right? You might only have plate mail, a backpack, a shield, and water skin, right? If that's all you've got. So, but plate mail is a big deal, right, for the fighter class. Anyway, so we get back to town. We go ahead and we utilize the remains of these wolves. We keep their pelts, harvest the meat, and we get back to town. We immediately head right for the tavern where we can talk to henchmen. And we hire a dwarf to replace the person we lost. And we work out our excavation plans. Remember, we found 3 mounds that need to be excavated, which is going to require laborers. And so talking to our torchbearer, who's told us he has cousins and brothers and sisters and siblings, and he recommends 2 dozen, and they can get through a mound in a day, excavation of a mound in a day, probably. So we're hiring literally 24 laborers, and we were going to hire guards for those, and we decided it's too many of them. And what are we going to do? Because I suggested as Vela that let them excavate while we do other things. And Donald thought it might be wise if we guard these people. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of territory. A mound is like 30, whatever you're going to have. We're going to have to protect these 24. And, also they could steal from us if they happen to excavate something of value. So um, Vela thought of that in my conversation with Donald. I wouldn't suggest Donald hinted that they might steal from us. That Vela went, yeah, you're right, and they might steal from us. So we're going to be the guards for the excavation team. So once we got that figured out, the who we wanted to, how many and who, and what's that going to cost us, and how are we going to guard them, and we decided to take the book. Now remember, those in 13, we discovered a tome sitting on a podium, so to speak, a lectern, sealed. We did not open it. We just immediately grabbed it and bagged it. We didn't mess with it. We didn't open it. We had been warned by the wizard, if we find a tome, he wants it, but be very, very careful if you try to read it. They can be dangerous. And it was yellow tome. So we wanted to, after we conducted business, to get our team of excavators together, etc. And we headed over to talk to the wizard and say, here, buy this from us, since he said he will, and he wants any kind of things like this we can bring him. He looks at it and says, oh, this is not the tome I was hoping to find, but this is great. However, I can't open this. It's going to be trapped. And he offers us half of what he would have offered us if he could read it. And of course, Nagion and Jorge's Felonius the Paladin, and Donald's pretty quiet about it, and Vela's pipes up here and there. But for the most part, Jorge said, well, we'll just hold it until you decide how to open this thing safely. And Nagion's like, wait a second, the witch in the bogs might be able to help us on this deal. And Donald, we had, again, all this for me is, it's our characters in these situations, and we're having these casual role-playing conversations as our characters, right? And Donald says, yes, but a witch. There was no book around that witch. That witch wasn't surrounded by books, so I don't know how valuable she'll be or what she'll. But the reality is, we're not going to give this tome up for half of what it's worth. And Vela jokes we can get Nagion drunk and can trick him into opening the book, right? But he does warn us of because Vela, at one point I said, what kind of trap are we talking about? If we open this, could we deal with it? I mean, if we open this thing up and a demon manifests, could we be the ones to deal with it? And she's, well, he doesn't know, but there's people have vanished, can get sucked into a portal, or et cetera, et cetera. So we all refrained maybe from that being the answer to this riddle, except Vela would be more than willing to get Nagion drunk and let him take him out back and ask him to read from the book. You know what I mean? But Vela's, it's we're not going to do that. But she'd be willing to sacrifice Nagion for and Nagion does all of our transactions with the pawnbroker. So I suppose we shouldn't so quickly dispatch with the appraiser, right? I'm going to start calling him the appraiser, right? No. Anyway, and that's where we closed. So we only played for about an hour. I would say an hour, 45 minutes. So it was really a battle. And then organizing for the next session, which we're going to be able to do next week. So fantastic. So again, we'd all been away for on and off for a month and a half, 2 months. And getting back into the rhythm of it again last night was fantastic. I had a chance to peruse this a little bit before game session yesterday. Just boning up again, make sure I know where I'm at. Looked over my maps and my notes of what we've been doing, and I was ready to go. It's definitely it is, how can I say this? It is something, it's so loaded with good stuff. It's something you really I want to enjoy for a while, right? It's one of those things where you're just scratching the surface of these epic games, right? I don't care if it's Pathfinder 2 edition. I don't care if it's 5th edition. I don't care what game it is, but when you get these deep volumes, you get these books where you can see you can dream the dream, right? That, oh wow, what's gaming going to be like when we're at level 8, and what kind of adventures are we going to have? And I know it sounds ridiculous from somebody who's GM'd for 30 years, 40 years, right? All these games, but again, from my side of the table as a GM, it's a different experience, right? What you're doing as GM is different than the players see. And I'll never forget a few years ago, in the 5th edition group here locally, and get over to the house and I plop down there. We're getting ready to play, and before session starts, it's a packed house because Big Mike runs these amazing big groups of D&D 5th edition and wonderful people. And I would sit, and Carl was talking to me about what he's doing with his character. And he was preparing for what he's going to do with his character when he's at level 6 and 8 and 7. And I remember thinking, Jesus Christ, man, what do you mean he was so excited about how he was going to craft and build his character as these adventures went on. And I remember thinking that's the craziest thing in the world. Why would you prepare for something? You can't promise you're going to be alive at the end of this session. You can't. But that is a certain type of joy I've never had as a player. Just the idea of dreaming the dream of where this character is going, right? I've always played characters as a person, as a character. So I was always concerned about being the character. I was never concerned about the character sheet. I was never concerned about what I'm going to be able to do at level 4. And even in talking to Jose and playing with Jose's so aware of what's coming at level 2 and what's level 3. I had forgotten that my character had cleave, and that after I get to level 1, or what at level 1, I have a second cleave. If I kill something at level 3, I'll have another cleave. So I get 2 cleaves if I kill something. And Jose's aware of that. And I'm aware of it, but it's like, I'm not playing for what I get to do at level 4. I don't play for what I can be at level 6. And that's probably because I never had a chance to be a player for any period of time. Certainly not in a game where leveling up comes with a whole nother responsibility, and it comes with other experiences, and it comes with engaging the fiction as a hero, not like superhero, but as a character with intent, as a character that isn't always a victim of the game, but is now has intent. And this is something it's just never crossed my mind. I could talk I could talk maybe half-assedly about how I don't like superhero level gaming, or I don't like, you're the center of the story gaming. It's not about you, it's about the party. It's not about your hero. It's about the whole game. I still feel that way. I don't want these sessions to be about Donald of Clearwater or Vela. It's about our group and our group of characters and the stories and the adventures they go on. That becomes the story, but we're not really writing a story. We're not really engaged. But you begin to say, wait, Vela, I now feel a little more empowered as Vela because I'm a little cushiony, right? I've got plate mail, I've got a little more hit points, and it does begin to change how I'm going to be probably role playing Vela, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. This is a psychological shift that I've never had the luxury of in OSR in old D20, right? Now here's the funny thing. It's all relative, right? So although I feel this way now, we could end up facing some level HD4, HD6, HD8 creatures that could very quickly waylay us or put us in our place. So these are the things you don't want to confuse with, oh, I'm now that thing, right? I mean, again, I was hit just twice against the wolves, and I already lost 8 of my 28 hit points. So if these wolves had been a little more effective, or if we had had a smaller group, I would definitely still be aware of Vela's. Vela is not, you know, um, safe, right? So I don't want to be safe. I want the games to have a tension, a fear that this could be, there is this trepidation about what we're doing. It's dangerous, but it's also nice to just realize that, okay, we're a little more competent, right? And the plate mill alone just gives us some more cushion. But having now a few hit points. So again, for those of you who have been players in these style of games for decades, none of this stuff is a new concept for you. But for somebody who's been playing OSRs for decades as a GM, as a dungeon master, I've not had the luxury of really being at this side of the table, right? Um, Looking at the characters I build and thinking about what they're going to be able to do at level 5 with their magic or whatever. Those things have never crossed my mind. As a GM, you know the rules. Okay, if Bill gets to level 5, he's going to have these tools, and I need to know those things. The GM and the players are going to make sure they know. But I've just never had that luxury on that side of the table. And so it does flatten out some of the observations that I've made over the years as a GM of these old school games, right? You start to realize, okay, I need to polish the edge on that opinion, right? Because we can be very opinionated, but until you've experienced more things, or until you've experienced both sides of the table, until you've sat in that player's chair for a while and you start saying, wait a minute, what can Vela do when I get to level 8? What is she going to be capable of, etc.? Well, as a fighter, her cleave improves, etc., but not a whole lot for Vela, right? But if you're a magic user, I can see why the person I sat next to at Big Dave's D&D 5th edition table was looking at his future spells, what I can do next with this spell, and how I can combine them to create more damage. And I remember at the time thinking, that is just, why aren't you in the here and now? Why are you even thinking about that? Um it's just different perspectives, right? And I don't know if I'm still ever going to be that kind of player, right? Because I don't see role playing as a game. I see it as characters on adventures doing crazy things, and the stories that come out of that. I don't really play to win, and I don't play to, you know. But when you realize it is a game, and you realize, hey, beating the dragon could be the goal, then I want to make sure my character's standing at the end of that dragon fight, right? I would like my character to be one of the survivors who can tell the tale of defeating the dragon. But I would be okay with the tale of my character being waylaid by the dragon as an epic death. And you start to experience the games differently. And I think that's a good thing. So anyway, thanks for listening to me, Babylon. Everybody out there, have a great week. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.